What's up, Liron here, and in this episode of Painting Masters, we'll be reviewing works by Konstantin Sterkhov. What's up, Liron here. Thank you for joining me in another episode of Painting Masters. I've been really enjoying this series, and I feel like doing a lot of these in the next few weeks, and so you can expect at least, I think, one episode a week. I have a lot of artists to get to, a lot of requests that are waiting, and today, as I mentioned, we're going to be looking at works by Konstantin Starkov. He's a Russian painter, works both in oils and in watercolor. What's interesting to me is that I didn't really like his oil paintings, didn't really connect with them, but his watercolors, on the other hand, are spectacular. This is the only word I can use, and we've seen quite a lot of different things up until this point here in Painting Masters. We've seen mostly Impressionism, some realism, we've seen also some more abstract and surrealism. However, I think this is just a good example for good paintings, good quality, good skills. I think if there's one thing that really characterizes his work is his skill level, and his paintings are just impressive. They're good. It's good art, good composition, good values, good, and I'm not even critiquing any paintings I show on this in this show. I'm just talking about paintings I love. But when I do dive deeper on his work and take a look at it on a very deep level, it's just good art. And so I really think you're going to enjoy this one. Let me know what you think in a comment below, and I'll be happy to do more of the types of videos and artists that interest you. And with that being said, let's get started. Okay, so let's get started, and the first painting I want to show you is this one. It's just beautiful. Now, there's a main reason I wanted to start with this particular painting, and it's not only because it's a portrait, but there are a few amazing things about it here. From my experience with my recent portrait paintings, the one thing that was really a challenge for me was getting the facial expression to look right. That was one of the things that challenged me the most. And with this one, he really nailed it. Like, the gentle smile and the expression with the eyebrows is just spot on. Now, I don't have the original picture or person to compare it to, or the scene. If this was painted live, even more impressive. I don't have that, but what I can tell is that the subtle expression is just created really, really well. Now, aside from that and the gentle smile and the look in the eyes and everything, there's a lot of interesting things here where, for example, this side of the shirt is a little sharper, you can tell, and then it kind of blends in the sides into the background. Here as well, there's and this right side, kind of negates that and is a bit more fluid, a bit more, there's the blossoms. There's while this was still wet, he painted probably this, and then it led to these bleedings and a bit of flowers that are created, which is beautiful. I love the abstractness of the background, which you don't even need to know what's there. It just works. I thought initially it was kind of a seascape or, the beach or something like that, but who knows? It could even be a window pane. It could be many things. About the process of making this, and of course I'm just making estimates or guesses, I think he did all of these whites with opaque paint. It makes sense, after he finished with the first dark layer, I guess. What could happen is he may have used masking fluid as well, because the way the texture is left in some of these does make you think there is a bit of masking fluid. I wonder about the hair and the highlights there. Could be, again, opaque paint. The highlights seem like they could have been preserved or could have been done by opaque paint, but even if he uses gouache or anything like that, it's still very gentle, and he doesn't blow up the highlights too much. They don't lose their quality in being gentle and being an integral part of the painting, I suppose. So that's the first one. We talked a lot about it. This one, I love it. It's like, okay, so she's sleeping on this little sofa or couch, and the light is pouring in through the window, and I could totally imagine that, and it's just such a smart and clever scene and composition. There's a lot of feeling of diagonal lines. So there's the shadow, the light comes in diagonally. It radiates on her head, on her hair, diagonally, and then you also have the pattern on the sofa or couch matching it. So you have these diagonal stripes that really give this a feeling of, I don't know, it just, you can feel the texture almost. And if you look here at the highlights, I'm going to zoom in a bit so you can see this is really cleverly done. I do think he does a lot of these with opaque paint. This looks more like he painted around it, all of the area of her face and her arm and her shirt, of course. But this is really, really impressive, you know. The way you just feel the light shining on the couch. I wonder how he did it. I wonder about the process. Now, if we zoom in here, you can see that these drier brush strokes, they actually seem like they go beyond her sleeve, which is interesting. He really tried to convey the light. You know what? I take back some of what I said. This is not the pattern on the sofa. I just now realized this is light coming in from the blinds, because you can see the same pattern on her shoulder, then here on the sofa, and also a bit on her face, very gently. So I assume it could be something like that. Another thing I want you to notice, which makes this really beautiful in my opinion, is, for example, here there's a beautiful variety of edges that really brings our attention to the shape of the object. So her leg, her shin in that example, there's a sharp light here because it's coming from the, probably cast by the couch onto her leg, but then this soft transition is due to the shape of her shin turning around, and what happens is the light gradually, it turns gradually from light to dark, so the shape is conveyed really well using the edges. Another thing that I just noticed now is notice the reflected light here coming back from the couch. You see there's a shadow, but in the shadow, on the very edge of her arm, there is this sliver of light. If we zoom in, you can better see it, which is just beautiful. The hair in the light, you know, just very, very smart in all senses and compositionally, everything. So now we're going to do a sharp change here into a scene. This is, I believe, by the name Simplified, Helsinki Church. So this is a church in Helsinki, probably. Again, very smart the way he approached this. The scene reads very well, and you can tell it's on the water or near a body of water, and then we have in the distance here these probably other churches' towers or something to that like. There's a hint of birds flying. There are these poles in the water, and there's birds on them. You can see some birds here are flying, some are sitting here, and it's such a minimalistic painting, but it works so well. You even got in a few figures here on the right. Probably fishermen. Just very, very smart. All of this green here, I don't know what purpose it serves, but it just works really well in the overall composition. Another thing that I like is how he layers these poles that are more of a drier brush kind of stroke, quick stroke, with the water surface that's a little more blended and I guess just a little more even and gradual in the changes. So you have sharp over and harsh edges over gradual faded edges, which is really impressive. I love the way he approached this one, and it seems like he added these while this area was a little wet, and by doing that he created the reflections and some interesting details. You can see actually the layer from underneath. Maybe he covered it up. You can see there's two separate layers here, two washes. Very interesting the way he approached this. This one I really, really like. So this is looking into the light. It's what I call it in my head. By the way, I love his signature. We'll see it. You can see it here, the K. And there's another one, I think here, the stamp, and then I like how he does that. I want to maybe do that in the future as well, have a stamp of my own. So here, again, very beautiful light shining through, strong, stark shadow. Notice how the figure itself merges completely with the door here, and a bit here as well. And it's just so smart the way he approached this. Just merge the layers and simplify the scene for us, the viewer, to enjoy the subtleties of light and shadow. Instead of bombarding us with all the details and throwing the job of interpreting and taking away our chance of trying to interpret it ourselves, he actually, and this is why I think I just had an insight, this is why I love Impressionism, I think, because it gives the responsibility of interpretation to the viewer. I love that idea. So he really does that well here. And notice how abstract the outside is, how simplified, not abstract, but how simplified it is. You know, there's a doorway here, there's this rooftop here. My guess, it looks a bit Asian place, but I don't know, it could be anywhere. I love that. And again, the contrast here with the merging of the wall and the figure alongside the sharp, harsh edges and shadows here, and here as well, down here, these all work really well in harmony. And this really goes to show you how planned he is in his approach, because combining these two areas is not to be taken for granted. The fact that he thought of doing it in this particular way shows that there's a lot of thought behind it. Next up, we have this. I just thought it would be nice to throw in a flower, a bit of a more abstract scene. See, there's a lot of effects here that were done wet and wet. Maybe he put in some salt into the wet wash, and that created these nice little blossoms. Could look like flower buds. I love how he approached this. Notice how he connects the outer blue wash into a warmer, orangey, peachy, pinky kind of wash in the flower. And it just reads really well. If you take a few, zoom out a bit, it looks beautiful. And then if you zoom in, you can see all the details. I love the strong touches of muted green here, yellow-green. Just fantastic. Really enjoyed this one. This is a very unique one as well. I just don't see a lot of paintings that are done this way. Most of the scene is really monochromatic, kind of gray and muted, toned down. But then the laundry that the woman is hanging, and the woman and the few, I don't know if this is vases or for flower pots maybe. They're all very colorful and beautiful. And notice his attention to the actual clothing items. This here looks like a skirt or a dress of some sorts. Just very smartly done. And the colors he used, he got in a bit of green, oranges, reds, some yellows. Very, very smart. A blue, a purple. I love the way he did this. Antennas, then birds in the background. I don't like as much the blurriness of how he did these areas, but I like how together with the laundry, it looks fantastic. What else we have here? Okay, so a classic scene. This is more what I show in different episodes of the more impressionistic landscapes and marinescapes, seascapes. Beautiful impression of light and shadow. And I'm going to show you a few more unique paintings, so you want to stick around. There's going to be something really cool in just a moment. I love how he did yellow, it looks like French ultramarine, burnt sienna, and then green as the shadow color, reflection color in the water. Just very, very clever. The way he builds the scenes up just works really well. This one, another one I really like. So sitting at I don't know exactly what it is, but there's this small ledge here, and the light is pouring through, coming into the scene on the cup here. Sharp shadows here, a bit of softness in the shadow, just very cleverly done. The face is portrayed really well. You can tell a lot of things about the person just by the way he paints them. Love that sharp contrasts with really strong red color. Just very smart again the way he builds it. Notice the bricks, how he created them using very weak washes, not even dry brush like I tend to default into doing. Very, very smart. This one, again, beautiful, beautiful. It actually says something here. Blue Swan. Okay. Blue Swan 1, probably numbered it. I wonder about these splashes, if you used masking fluid. It looks a bit like masking fluid and not necessarily opaque paint. Very interesting. I would like to see the process of creating this, probably making a very wet and messy wash, but being very careful to preserve the highlights. Just beautiful work. I love the color selection as well, a bit of orange here, a bit muted, dirty orange, and then strong blue. These two work really well together. And notice how he separated the yellows and the blues, and it didn't create a green, which takes a lot of skill. They're just separate in the scene. This is one of my favorites. Not necessarily the painting itself, but just the story it tells, how she's sitting down reading a magazine and the sink in the background is broken. It could be a sad scene. I don't know, but I love it. So smart of him to create it that way. And I wonder if he asked someone to model and he actually arranged the scene that way, or maybe it was a picture someone sent him. very clever. And notice how much subtleties there are in the shadow. Her legs, and then the flip-flop, and the foot. There's so much going on in the dark shadows. He's truly a master of light and shadow, edges, color harmony, all of these things together, composition, just all of the basics. And the basics are the most important part, really. So there you go. You get this beautiful piece. And finally, this is the one I think, yeah, we're wrapping up with this one. So impressive. Such an impressive scene. The black in this scene is the orange and red, which is really, really impressive. And it's a sunset, probably. It could be a sunrise, I don't know. There is a bit of water on the dock that's reflecting some of the figures, or it doesn't really matter what happens here. They're going down into the water. And again, the orange works really well with the blues. I think there's a lot to learn from him and from his artwork. In the sense of color harmony, especially, I would say, composition, telling the story, just so smart. Notice the subtle touches of just everything blended together in the boat, but you can still tell where the seats are inside the shadow. Just so clever. And I think this is a perfect piece to end this on. There's a bit of dripping water into the hazy background. Works fantastically. Just what can I say? I enjoyed this episode a lot, and it was so easy to find like 10 or so paintings to review because all of them are fantastic. I actually looked at 11 paintings, but all of them are beautiful. So I hope you enjoyed this one. And with that being said, we can move on and wrap up this episode. So this is it. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. I think one of the most I'll say, impressive artists we've seen on this show. A very good balance of skills, some personal interpretation of the scenes and subjects. A lot of his personal style, but still keeping it very real and very anchored in reality. Another thing I would say is just the level of skill, and it takes time to build that skill set. I think I've been doing watercolor painting now for about, how long was it? Maybe almost 5 years now, 4.5 years. And I just now feel like I'm getting the hang of it. And I'm at a point where there's no plateau. You know, I didn't have a plateau for at least a few months. I just feel like every piece of art that I create is better than the last one, which is interesting. It's going to be interesting for me to follow and see how that feels like in the future, and if I do plateau again and then I need some external help. But I haven't had that for a long time now. But it just goes to show you that you can do this for 20, 30 years and still learn so many new things. You know, because these artists really are on some different level. And so I was really impressed by the art today. I think I really enjoyed it. And I'm gonna now ask you, what do you prefer? What do you want to see more of? So let me know in the comment below. I'll be happy to do that. If you enjoy this format, any feedback is really, really helpful. I really appreciate your time and attention and the fact that you watch these videos. I want to thank you so much, and I will see you again in another one real soon.